Ever wondered what truly sets unforgettable hospitality apart from just another stay? This is the Global Hospitality Collective podcast, where we go beyond the surface to uncover the stories of short-term rental and vacation rental leaders who are reshaping our industry. Every other week, authors behind the Hospitable Host book series unpack the real strategies, lessons, and heart-led decisions driving meaningful change in hospitality. So if you're ready to challenge the status quo and elevate the way you host, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Hello, hospitality friends. I've got a great guest today with the Global Hospitality Collective. She wrote in one of the recent books. It's called Hospitable Hosts, STR Sisterhood Edition. This one came out, I think, on International Women's Day, sometime in March of 2026. I don't know the actual date. I don't think it matters. But it's really, this is going to be a really good story. It's definitely different than some of the podcasts that you've already heard, which I'm excited to jump in. So Chapter 5, Brittany Blackman. Brittany, welcome. Hi, how are you?
I'm awesome. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So, your story is a little bit different than other people's. I'm going to just let you jump in however you feel like you want to, because it's going to be different. So go ahead.
Absolutely. So kind of explaining the difference behind it. So I fell into vacation rentals like so many of us, I feel like, do. Many years ago, probably about 15, 16 years ago. And I was a property manager based out of Destin, Florida. And so for about 9.5 years, I worked with a PMC in the local market. Started, quote unquote, at the bottom and worked my way up, became their operations manager, running that business for several years. In 2020, a few things happened, and really had a just come to Jesus meeting with myself. I had always had the dream to own my own business. And unfortunately, buying the business that I worked at just wasn't the right time for those owners, but I was ready. So in 2020, I decided to go out on my own and start 𝐻𝒉𝒆 Rentals, still here in the Florida Panhandle, and follow that passion. I thought I was going to have that business for 10, 15, 20 years, build it. I knew from day one, build it to sell it, because realistically, I didn't have family that was going to take it over and didn't want to just bank on finding that amazing employee that exists out there somewhere to take it over one day. And so really set a lot of that structure up intentionally up front of just one day I'm going to sell it. And then I had like a midlife crisis in about the end of 22, the end of 23. So yes, just 3 years in, really just like started rethinking things. Honestly, I just thought that like my light had dimmed. Like I had such this passion about vacation rental industry. All of a sudden my light started dimming, dove into personal development, which I had never done before, sought some external help, and just started navigating what was wrong with me. Wound up in a very lengthy process deciding that selling my vacation rental business was actually the best choice. And then still wanting to serve and help others, have jumped into doing some coaching and consulting work. So still have a little bit of a footprint in the industry, and also am able to help out with other industries as well. So that's where, again, my story is a little different, because I'm not in it necessarily every single day, but for 14 years of my life, it afforded me some really cool experiences and some lessons learned the hard way.
I bet. I feel like that is a really hard decision that you made. I also feel like I talk to a ton of hosts weekly. A ton. Okay, that was dramatic. I do talk to hosts like every single week though. And some people are like, they just want the quit button. They're like, I do not want to do this. It's terrible. And I think a lot of people have those thoughts, maybe even weekly. What was the difference for you? Like, what seriously pushed you over that you're just like, hey, I don't really want to do this anymore. It doesn't mean I'm not connected to the industry, but what did that look like?
It was a long process. It wasn't a decision made overnight. And it's kind of, in retrospect, how I would describe it now. It wasn't as clean as this, but it was kind of like have you ever had to make a decision when you were younger and maybe like your parents or a teacher said, okay, well, let's get a piece of paper out and let's write the advantages and the disadvantages and put a line down the middle. And you just start kind of filling in those areas and you figure out which one has more weight than the other. That's kind of what kept happening for me. And I also, in building that, I had to realize what my reality was, because there was a time too where it was like, okay, Brittany, just hire an ops manager. Like, you're not the only person to want to grow and scale and not be in the business every day. But I had to really know who I was and how I operated, what was important to me. And again, through some of that personal work, that's when I realized that's just not an option for me. It wasn't what lit me up and made me excited. And so, again, in the simplest form of saying it, I wrote that list down. And in my story, there were more disadvantages to staying where I was at than choosing to sprout off and jump into a whole new industry and do something I've never done before.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense what you decided to do. And I think, honestly, I think it's really brave because a lot of us stay stuck for a really, really long time and don't realize, oh, here's the root cause of whatever it is that I'm feeling that way. And knowing that you can change it. Like, I don't know how old you are. You don't have to say how old you are, but the likelihood is you still have 20, 30, 40, 50 years left on this planet if you're in your 20s and 30s. Yeah, I mean, if we plan like the way an insurance agent or our financial advisors plan, you're going to live another 50 years. What on earth could you do for 50 years if, why would you stay stuck in a spot that you really freaking hate?
Yeah.
Is there any if somebody is feeling this way, like, I don't want to deter people to be hosts. I honestly don't think that that's what you're trying to do either. But if there is things that, you felt like these were just really big red flags, or were they really just personal red flags that, if somebody else was like listening to this and thinking about it, because maybe it's hard because they're going through a hard time, do you have any tactics on what they could do or try to find out for themselves? Like if they wanted to follow in the same footstep and maybe their end goal is their pro list is bigger than their con list. But do you have any tips or tidbits about that you want to share about that?
Yeah, so there was something you said that just kind of triggered very closely that I've not been able to put into words, but what was going on for me. And it was just misalignment for me. So it wasn't anything wrong that the industry was doing. So the reason I say that is because let's say that we have people who aren't in hospitality right now and they've got this dream of, getting into vacation rentals, having their own home or starting a property management company or co-hosting business, like whatever it is, right? It doesn't matter what we're doing right now. What matters is, are you being called to do something bigger and different, and are you stuck? And that is one thing that honestly my coach helped me understand, was that like for a long time I was living this life that everybody else had told me it was supposed to look like. And it was everybody else's definition of success. And that's not anybody else's fault but myself. But it took somebody from the outside being like, well, Brittany, why do you think this? And where did this come from? And everything, just as we worked together, started making sense. And when I realized I can control my life, I can write my own story. It doesn't have to be this fairy tale book that we're sold on social media and in conversations. And everything just changed. Like literally, that was probably one of the light bulb moments of like, you don't have to do this. Like you can jump into whatever you can do whatever. Like who's to tell you how you're supposed to live life? And that was a huge catalyst. And I think, going to your point of like the tactics around there, it's some hard work. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know that I could have done it myself. I had a coach, which fun story. I had actually met her years ago at a Pirate Festival in Tampa, Florida. Um, little did I know that, 5, 7 years later, I was going to be calling homegirl up and being like, so I'm having a midlife crisis. Can you help me? Just goes to show you never know where you're going to meet people you might need later in life. But, I've got to give her the credit. Like, she challenged me to think differently. She, backed me up from my problems so I wasn't so close to them and said, again, what are you working towards? Like, what's your freedom? And that's honestly, like, getting a little deeper, why I chose the name for my company, Discover Freedom, as I did, because I just realized that everybody has a different definition of what freedom means to them, and that definition changes based on your season in life. Maybe you're growing. Maybe you just need to sit still. Maybe it's time to just embrace things, right? Like, I don't know. Everybody's at such a different point, and that's the fun part, of the work that I get to do now, is like helping people find that, because it does look so differently. And then what means most important to me is you tie it back into your business. So it takes, with all of that said, it was a very lengthy answer. It takes self-reflection. It takes getting to know yourself. And I firmly believe this in business today. If you don't know who you are and why you put your feet on that cold floor every single morning, and it gives you energy and passion and love that nothing else can give you externally, you're not doing what you need to be doing. It's not going to feel right. That business isn't going to be sustainable. You can't grow a team. You can't share hospitality if you don't have that passion inside.
Yeah, I completely agree, because I think our hospitality, I think our lives, like our attitudes, reflect what's happening inside. And it's dramatic to say if you're dead inside, but if you're dead inside because you're working a corporate job and you hate it or whatever, landscaping job, I don't care what job it is, you radiate whatever that is. Like, if you don't radiate happiness and you want to be happy or know that it's possible, then you, like, that said it very well, is like, you need to know what where your lane is, like what you want to do on this earth. And I think that's really awesome, because I think a lot of people get away from that, and they, other people are deciding that for them, society, their parents, how they grew up, the community they live in, whatever it is. And we decide if that's a construct for us. It doesn't have to be the construct for you. You can actually make up whatever the heck you want for your life. It's amazing.
It is very beautifully put there.
You can just make that shit up, guys. I swear to God, any life you want to live, you can make that shit up. People do it every single day.
Yeah. I just imagine, like, this is going to be a little grim, but it's like, how many funerals do you go to where they're like, well, they didn't follow the rules. They didn't do exactly, you know what I mean? Like, no, like, people talk about how bold and brave and courageous and sometimes messy and imperfect, that you were. And that's what you're remembered by. It's not about how you followed all this perfect checklist of what you're supposed to do. So figure out what moves you and what you want to be when you grow up. And even if you don't know, like, keep trying, keep, figuring it out. It's only failure if you don't learn from it, in my eyes.
Yes. And actually, you just said, like, what you want to be when you grow up. And also, if anybody's listening, the grown up can be anytime. Like, you can just, like, your 20-year-old self can do this, your 25-year-old, your 30, 35, 45, 55, 65. Imagine the fact that, statistically everybody's going to live till they're, I don't know, mid-80s or something. I'm sure there's actual statistics that say the ages, and usually I do kind of know that. But imagine, like, you have 5 years left to live, whatever age you're at, and you can redo it. You can redo exactly what you're doing right now, and you could wake up every day and do what you want to do. And if you don't really want to be in the Minnesota winters, I'm in Minnesota, you could just move to Arizona and hang out in the really hot weather. Like, some people love that. It's like 100 degrees there right now, and it's friggin' March. It's like, people love that. Like, you can just go do that. It's amazing. Just like takes a plane ticket. Feels simple sometimes. It's simple, not easy. It's simple, not easy. Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that.
What are you doing now? Because you kind of mentioned that you're helping people. You mentioned your business is Discover Freedom. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? Because that's kind of a pivot and still has to do with some hospitality.
Absolutely. So, the honest truth, I was in management all of my younger years. And it was never because I actually knew what I was doing. I just happened to be really good at it. Like people just saw me as a leader. I showed up, I was dependable, I did what I said I was going to do, I problem solved, I was quick, I wasn't very reactionary most of the time. And so that was all like great for me, but I never had any formal training in how the heck to lead humans. I, again, never dove into like personal development to know myself and all this stuff. So, in the past 2 years, 3 years now, I've gone through a coaching certification, been able to work with, again, different teams, different industries, and realized that people problems exist everywhere. And I also realized how much I messed up. I realized that because I didn't receive any of that training, I was the source of about 99.9% of all of our problems, even though I loved blaming everyone else. Like, why aren't they motivated? It's just so hard to find staff. Nobody wants to work anymore. This is just so hard. Like, I said those things plenty of times. Um, Now I know that there is an easier way to do it. Again, it's not just snap your fingers. Like it's intentional, but again, you've got to figure out who you are. And so in the work that I do now, a lot of times it's stemming from working with upper management and it's helping them figure out their voice. What is their why? And that's all mixed between personal and professional. Why are we selling what we're selling? Is it a house? Is it a product, a service? Like whatever business they're in, like why are we doing this? Because ultimately, I've got to get everybody at the top on the same page before we can start making sure the team is on the same page, before we can, start focusing on the customer experience. And in vacation rentals, that happens if you're in property management to be double-sided. You have owners and you have guests, which are your customers. And so, what I saw when I kind of stepped outside of the industry per se, is I saw a lot of talk about AI, KPIs, technology, software, revenue management, this, that, and it's all great. People need to understand the functions of the business, but nobody's talking about the people and like the heartbeat of the business. Nobody's talking about like that depth of it. And in reality, like when we talk about this word hospitality, we're all going to have very different definitions of it. So trying to build this black and white definition of it kind of is counterproductive to what hospitality is, right? Like it's all about how we make them feel. And so, again, it's tying together the people in the business with what they're selling. Are they living it? Are they breathing it? Because what I can tell you is when you have and you look at the business holistically and everybody's on the same page for the same reason, trying to accomplish the same things, business gets easier. You're not pulling your hair out. The founder of the business can grow a team so they can either step out or just focus their attention on what they love to do. And honestly, the team breathes a little easier because they can do what they've been hired to do, and they have like this roadmap. They understand what they're all working towards, and I just feel compelled to say this, like we talk about what hospitality means as an industry so much, but if you've ever stopped and asked like an actual property manager or a host, what is your definition of hospitality and how does it weave in between every vendor and contractor you work with, every guest you're accepting in, and if you represent owners, that owner experience? How many times do you think that they actually come back to you with a fully thought out answer to that question?
I'm guessing it's not much.
No. So, so we're selling hospitality, but we're not even talking about what it means to us because we're too busy like scrolling on LinkedIn to see what everybody else has to say about it. Well, you
Mhm.
can't be everybody to everything. Like, figure out your lane and what you're really good at, what brings you fire to your soul, and build around that. And that's, I will say, for as many things as I did wrong as a manager, I think one area is that I was so passionate about what I did, and my employees knew that passion, and they didn't care where I led them, they were coming with me. And that is irreplaceable. And that's what I try to work with and teach other people now is you got to start with that and build everything else around it. You need to know the functions of the business. You need to know what's going to save you time, increase exposure, things like that. But if you don't have the core of the business figured out, what are you, how many directions are you running?
I think especially with hosts, because we typically wear all the hats, it's a lot of different ways. And you kind of pointing out that your cleaners will be able to, like your team members will be able to see that you're kind of running in a lot of directions.
Mm-hmm.
And how does that make them feel? And how does that make them feel when they work for you? Like, do they feel like you're stable? Do they not feel like you're stable? And just things like that. Do you have any tips or like a list of like what are a couple of questions a host can ask themselves to get closer to exactly what you're talking about of like kind of knowing what their vision is or what hospitality means to them or what I mean, if somebody were to come to you cold and be like, "Ugh," what would you say to them if it's just a couple of prompts on the front end?
Oh, it's a great question. This one I ran across recently and I really liked it. If your business wasn't serving people tomorrow, what would be missing? And that one is really deep. Like initially when you read it, you're like, huh? But a good question makes you pause. And I remember even seeing that for my own and thinking, I'm going to insert this like a lot of us deal with imposter syndrome and we're not good enough and who's going to want to buy my product or rent my home or whatever it is. This one pauses you to think about like if the business wasn't there anymore, what's missing in the world? And when you that's a deep question when you can answer that one and really connect that into why are you doing what you're doing? Um, on a I would say more of like an eagle view, pulling out. If you've ever done, Tony Robbins is one place where I found this, and I have a resource on my website for it too, but it's like a wheel of life. So normally there's anywhere from like 7 to 9, 10 different like sectors of your life from relationships, money, work, fun, travel, different things like that. And if you've never graded yourself on how full those areas in your life are, that's a great way to start. It's a great way for you to get a pulse on where am I not full at and what needs tweaking. Because a lot of that is going to pull back into are you in aligned with what you're doing. Um, I would say like let's say that that you're passionate about hosting and managing properties, being in the vacation rental space. I think that question is who do I impact the most and what difference does that make? And also, I always love to put like guardrails up. So it's also like who don't I serve well? Like where do I miss the mark at where it's just not a good hit? Because you need to know both sides of those boundaries. And so I don't know why, like just a few of those questions were the ones top of mind to just kind of give you a starting thing and just start making you think a little deeper and a little differently. When I think about this industry, we're always just like, oh, well, how'd you get in vacation rentals? How did you get in short-term rentals? And so like we always kind of know like these little stories, but nobody's ever asking like deeper questions. And you normally don't get those answers until like an hour into the conversation. So how can we ask each other those little bit more direct questions? And if we've never even thought about it ourselves, it's real hard to answer it out loud. And that might shine a light where you might need to spend a little bit more time.
I think this is really interesting because the way I got into hosting, or I mean, I feel like a lot of people just fall into it. We couldn't sell a flip that we wanted to, or we couldn't get the amount of money we wanted to. A friend told me about Airbnbs, blah blah blah. But I knew, but I could still answer some of these questions. Like I knew about a very specific segment of people. Like I love to have girls' weekends. I love having 10 to 12 people in a house. There's not a ton of 10 to 12 people houses that I can afford or I could afford when I started. That was like, I want a place like that. And then I want, like, one of my favorite feelings ever is having all my friends over and seeing the door and seeing the mat right next to the door and all the shoes, like all the shoes. I love having 10 or 15 people over. I love that they take their shoes off. And then I have random pictures in my phone of like the doormat with all the shoes everywhere because it's so amazing. Like it means there's so much laughter probably happening in that house. And sometimes it's somber and blah, blah, blah. But still, it's like it's serving those kinds of people. And then knowing that that's the kind of people I want to show up for, and knowing that people spend their hard-earned money with us. I've seen that theme a lot lately of people talking about like our guests are right. And it's not about the customer's always right, like that whole stigma. It's about these people might have saved for 5 years to go on this one trip because they have a big family and not everybody can afford a week at the cabin in whatever area you're in. There's always a cabin somewhere. Not everybody can afford a whole entire week every single year or every 10 years. So if you think like we get very spoiled or we get jaded in the industry of thinking like, to us it's another guest, it's another group of guests that we do have to deal with. Sometimes it's difficult, sometimes it's not, but to them it could be the first trip that they've ever gotten to have all of their kids and their kids' spouses in one house for a week or for a weekend. And that is a really big deal that we are providing that for them. We want it to be an easy thing. We want it to show up as something awesome for them. We're literally building the memories with them in a way. Like we're just providing the space, and the space matters. Are they going to remember like sitting on the couch all together having fun talking about blah blah blah, or baking cookies or something and decorating cookies together at your kitchen table in your house? Like I think you are correct in saying that you need to know a little bit about what hospitality means to you. I also think all of these questions you're kind of bringing up is the reason you are in this book, is the reason people care about hospitality, is because we're trying to raise the standard. Like the Global Hospitality Collective that Jodie has made is literally trying to raise the standard of why do you do these things? Like, what's the reason that you show up for these people instead of these, 𝒉𝒂𝒍s or the Evolves or all these other property managers? Like, how do you show up differently? How can you show up differently? And you're just pushing people to think about that in their personal life because it will affect their business. It goes out into their team, into their guests, into all of these different people, owners, if they're hosting for people, and how you can show up for them, and just knowing what's inside you and what you want to share with the world, I guess. That's pretty great.
I love that. I love that. And I was even thinking, like, as you were talking about that, it was like, these are some other questions that I've not seen too many people spend a lot of time up front on it, but it's like, how do you want these people to feel, and what do you want them to say about you after you leave the room or after experiencing your brand? And so you do that for your customers, you do that for your team. And when I use the word team here, I also mean like even just your cleaner, because I get that excuse sometimes too when I go to do some of these conferences, is that they're like, well, we're just small, mom and pop, or it's just me, I just have a cleaner.
I hate
Well,
that word.
do you just want them to show up and clean, or do you want them to actually care? Because I say this all the time, if you just treat it like a job, why do you expect them to treat it any differently? That starts from the top. So, how do I want them to feel? What do I want them to say about me? You think about that from every interaction point of anybody that's going to do business with you, the customers, the clients, the guests, the vendors, the owners, your team. Like, you got to answer that question or those questions and ask them in multiple viewpoints, because ultimately you've got to figure out how to connect those things. Like, I would challenge, not to put you too much on the spot, but like, I'm assuming you have a cleaner, unless it's you.
A handful. No,
Okay.
no.
So you've got a full cleaner. So do they know that vision of the doormat with the shoes? That's the experience you're trying to create. Like, do they feel that in that pride of what they're doing?
Yeah, I think I've had my business for about 5 or 6 years now, and I think in the beginning I did talk about that, and you saying that makes me go, "Oh yeah, I should let them know." I do show up, like my cleaners will see when mistakes are made, when and mistakes, my mistakes, their mistakes, like I take responsibility for a lot of things. If they didn't know something, it is my fault. It is not anybody's fault except for mine, because I didn't communicate it to them, or I didn't communicate it well, or breezeway wasn't set up right. So I've noticed though, when I like how I react to guests doing something, like hey, they left cigarette butts all over the place,
Hmm.
how I react matters to how my cleaner reacts. I don't want her to freak out about this. I want her to clean it up. I want to also tell her that sucks. You have to clean it up. I'm sorry you have to clean it up. Thanks for letting me know. But some of those interactions, they decide how my cleaners show up. Because if I have a meltdown every single time something happens, they're going to have a meltdown every time something happens, because they're going to mirror my view. And this is a good point of kind of telling them like, hey, this is one of the reasons, like, because we are always saying like, this is what I'm looking for, like I need you guys to care about the guest experience. And they're not just a cleaner. I hate the word just too. Like I just have one property actually, and I just myself all the time. I'm like, I just have four. But it's when I'm talking to somebody with 109, I'm just like, oh, that's a lot different business that you have. But it's not just because there's plenty of people that have zero. But I think communicating that to, again, like my cleaners are going to get some voice texts and be like, hey, did you know this? Because every now and again I might tell them a story when I'm sitting with them, or like I happen to be at the house at the same time, but it's not necessarily part of their onboarding, and it should be part of their onboarding.
Hmm.
And that's what I love about getting to talk to people on podcasts like this, is now I always get ideas, and whether my assistant is annoyed with me or not, I'm not actually sure. But I was just like, hey, guess what we're doing now? And I do this like every week. I'm like, oh, I heard this great idea. We should have our own app, and this is why. But this is a good one. I'm going to actually star that and say that's got to be part of our onboarding process,
I love
because
it.
it's important. That's thanks for calling that out. I love it too. Ooh.
I do. It is so important, and it's the foundation. It's a not only part of the onboarding, but it's also the continuous conversation. So the other thing, when I was selling my business, and I don't talk about this often, but when I was selling my business, I actually called quite a few people who had exited the industry, very big names. They had exited the industry in the past few years, and I said, "Hey, just thinking about selling my business. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to or not." And I literally would say, "What don't I know? Tell me anything. I'm not even going to ask any questions. Like, I just want you to tell me." And one thing that I heard consistently was, this can be one of the most thankless jobs. And you're giving your all to everything, a lot of times, your heart and your passion, blood, sweat, tears, everything else. Um, and we don't, I don't think as an industry we create enough good PR for ourselves, feedback loops, and sharing those stories. I think we could do a lot better job of that collectively. That would also help things, because not to get super nerdy on you, but a little how humans work. Um, Humans are motivated by positive reinforcement, not by being told everything they do wrong. That actually does not motivate people to fix things. Yes, there's needs to be direct conversation sometimes, so I'm not trying to avoid that, but positive reinforcement is actually what fuels our fire and shows us we're doing the right thing. So, going back and tying into what you said, it's part of the onboarding. It's also part of the continuous conversation. So every year, when everybody's coming back to work and they got to, dust off the laziness from the winter season, or whatever it is where you are, let's pull together. Let's have a little conversation. Let's remember what we're here for. And throughout the year, let's celebrate those wins, celebrate those pictures. Are you asking for the right feedback and experiences from your guests? Are you getting the pictures? Are you sharing that with your team? Or are you only calling them and telling them, well, you didn't clean this. Well, we didn't do this. We lost that. Like, it's almost like we do it to ourselves, you know? And so I would just reinforce, like, I think for sustainability in business, it's intentionality up front. It's also continuous and making sure that you figure out those ways to fill your cup, because there's a lot of positive things that this industry does, but we don't talk about those very often, and we don't share that with our teams enough, and that can isolate people. And over time, when you're not having those conversations, it makes everybody forget what hospitality is. It makes everybody forget why they're there. And I think over time it turns it into this is just my job. But you have full control, and it takes time and intentionality, but you have full control to write that script a little differently in business, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of these things, and you resonate with me a lot because obviously I'm just like, you should do what you want to do. Spend time doing what you want to do and be a little happier about it, because this business, any business can be hard. Any business can like suck the soul out of you. Any corporate job can do that. Any retail job, any job can do this. But it's up to you. Like, we're in charge of our own happiness. Nobody else is. My husband is not in charge of my happiness. Nobody around me is in charge of my happiness. I am. And I can do things to, fill that role, or I can not, like, it's up to me. But there's this version of free will that you have to keep being reminded of. It's like, you have free will. Did you know that?
Right.
It's a silly thing, but it's true. Like, we all have free will. You don't actually have to do what your mom told you to, even if she told you this so many times over the last 30 years. You don't have to do it. It's not a thing anymore.
Very
Sad, but
true.
it's true.
Very true. And you got to know your values, like you have to know. That was one thing in my chapter. I forget exactly how I worded my quote there, but it was something, like, if freedom costs you your family, is it still worth it? And the reason I use those two words, because those two are my top two values are freedom and family. And I even had to think about that. Well, what if I have all the freedom in the world, but I lose my family in the process because I didn't make time for them, because I didn't slow down? That hit me. And that's when I was like, it's not only like having your own values, but it's understanding the order in which they come. So now I have understood that putting my family first was far more important to me as I got older than the freedom was. And it's, you've got to know that, because I think even in business, like, we talk a lot about like values in business, and I think people get really excited because they just think they get to like print these words and put them on the wall or put them on their website and they're going to look cute. Um, it's deeper than that, because if you set values the right way for your company and instill it within your team, that's how you make decisions, because you're going to have to make some hard decisions sometimes. You're going to have to choose. But if you don't even know what is like important here to you, you're going to make decisions that are out of alignment there and don't feel right to you. And so that was part of the personal development work that I did, because I thought I knew my values, and that was hysterical going through that process. There were tears, I'm not gonna lie. I had a meltdown. But I know them now, so it's all good. But you got to know that. You have to know what you're guiding your people by. And again, if you think it's just so woo-woo, then take it from the business perspective of when you make a decision. It's kind of like, this is one of my most favorite ones, like people over profit. Which one balances higher than the other? Every business, that might be a little different, right? Private equity might say one answer. Mom and pop might say the other, and maybe not. I know of some amazing private equity groups that value their people way over profit. So I don't mean to single out just an industry. Again, every single business in this world has to make that decision for themselves and know how they operate. And then you're operating in your lane, the branding gets easier, the marketing gets easier, you attract the right people, you get the right team on board who can, serve your passion, and you can keep growing. So I don't know, in Brittany's magical world in her head, it all makes sense when you do the inner work and piece it all together.
I understand and I agree because I think that's probably my favorite part about business. And I say this all the time, even when I'm in a free Facebook group and, like kind of trying to elbow out the haters and be like, the best part about real estate is you can ask what someone thinks that you should do. If you should allow smoking or not smoking in your property, if you should list on VRBO or not. The beauty of business and any business is you get to pick. You're the CEO. You get to own it. Like, this is like literally yours. I mean, if you're a business owner answering or like listening to this, like it's up to you. Like, you can take my favorite part is taking 7 people's opinions and then piecing them together to make my opinion on that and why I would do that. And then you go through a couple more things and then there's a new reiteration of it. And it's great. Like that's the cool thing about business is you can be a cutthroat asshole or you can be a sweet, warm grandma type. You can be like a wonderful, like I know a person that she calls it a granny house and she provides hard candies and Dr. Pepper to everybody that comes. And it's because that's what a grandma and that like market would do. And I wouldn't put that in my house, but that's awesome. She gets to do that. And I think the same thing about like what we value, what people over profit means. Sometimes that doesn't actually mean what you think it does. The weird thing about being a human is we all think differently about the same thing. Like it's very, very polarizing in America right now and around the world. And this is a perfect example is like we're screaming about things. Me and my brother do not see eye to eye in a couple of versions of politics. But if I ever boiled it down, we are the same effing person. Like we care about the same things, care about the same values. We get there very differently. And that's the beauty of it. It's okay. It's okay to not do what this person does. It's okay to show up the way that you want to show up. And there's not a right or wrong. If you don't want to charge for early check-in, then don't fucking charge for early check-in. It's okay, but it's not okay to throw shade at people that choose to do their business their way. That's the thing. That's when I feel like the problem starts is like, it's okay to do that. Like if you don't have to brag, you don't have to do anything, but you also don't have to target people and be like, I would never. It's okay that you would never. Just don't make people feel bad about how they do it, because that's the cool part about business is we get to do whatever we want. Like any business gets to, like you could start a business today and do whatever you want. Whether it makes money or not, completely different story. But you can run it however the heck you want, however you want to show up. So,
Touche to that. I mean, this would lead to a whole nother conversation. So we do not need to go down this bunny trail. But I will say, like in the team workshops that I do, one of my most favorite subject matters, besides emotional intelligence, is perspective. Because I feel like, and this is Brittany's brain, but social media has given us all a platform to have our own microphone, and that's good and bad. But I think so many people get caught in what you're saying of like, well, there's a right and a wrong way, because it's not my way, it's the wrong way. And that's the most dangerous thing that I see in working with teams and especially management. When I meet that mindset of there's a black and white and it's all my way and everybody else is wrong, we don't vibe very well, and businesses don't last very long, to be honest with you, because to your point, that's not the reality of how we work. There's different perspectives, and I'm always asking my clients, well, what's their story? Well, what do you mean? Well, what's their story? What's going on for the other person? Well, I haven't asked. Well, let's start there. Because it is. And so going back to this with hospitality, like, if you have a team, it's such a fun, like team bonding experience where we can sit down and go, what does hospitality mean to us? What does it not mean? Where are our boundaries? Where are we good at? Where are we not? And to your point, for the solopreneurs, or people just in it, themselves, their couple or whatnot, you can still do the same thing. Go have a fun night, change your scenery up, get out of your office or out of your house, and just have a fun conversation about what it means to you, again, it means to each of the people involved. And is it something that you actually love doing? Like, if you don't feel fired up and excited, then that's a flag, for you. But my whole takeaway from all of this is slow down. Slow down to speed up. We are in a hustle culture, and everybody's telling you everything you should be doing. And it's so great to have so much information, but I also feel like we are at information overload in the world today. And so hunker down with your own thoughts and figure out who you are. Understand there's different perspectives, and build your business, build your lane. If you want to be an employee and you don't want to have your own business, that's fine too. Go help somebody else build that. You may not, want the sleepless nights. I mean, the true honesty of entrepreneurship is it's so fun. You also don't sleep at night. You are worried about who's going to sue you when, like the imaginary people you've never even dealt with, but you're just terrified that you've done something you don't know that you did. They're going to sue you one day. I mean, just the weirdest things. You don't take bathroom breaks. You think about, business and shower out and on vacation in the bedroom. Like, it's awkward. So some people don't want all that. And that's totally fine too. Go help somebody else, build their dream and make it come to life and be a part of that. So just figure out why you want to put your feet on that cold floor every morning and do it.
That's probably the most beautiful way to wrap this up, because it is totally true. Like, you have lots of good wisdom bombs here. I've wrote a ton of notes. Pretty typical. Brittany, if somebody wants to work with you, if they want to look like Facebook stalk you, whatever, where are they going to find you?
Absolutely. So I love spending time on LinkedIn. So Brittany Blackman is just the easiest place to find me on LinkedIn. Also on Facebook as well. If you hit me up on Instagram, I'll be at Discover Freedom, and the website is discoverfreedom.life.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the time today. I feel like this was totally worth all of our time, because there's lots of good things that you can incorporate into your business this way. So hosts listening, give Brittany a follow, give her a shout if anything resonated with you. And Brittany, thanks for the time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's it for this episode of the Global Hospitality Collective podcast. If today's conversation made you think, inspired you, or just reminded you why hospitality matters, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Next week, our panel, Helen, Rose, Debbie, and myself are back, and we're going beyond the listings and the tech, diving headfirst into real stories, the hard decisions, and yes, all those weird and wacky guest experiences you won't believe are true. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Thanks for listening, and as always, keep hosting with heart. See you next time.